Shane, you took a look at Andy Kotelnicki's concepts for the RPO. And the first concept that you talk about is getting the defense distorted. That's the word that Andy Kotelnicki uses. What does he mean by that?
You want to confuse defenses as much as you can. He likes to do that through shifts and motions, really, and also using tempo. So, starting in like a 0x4 formation, and then shifting into a 2x2, and then adding motion on top of that. You'll see defenses pointing everywhere, trying to rotate safeties in and out of the box, and it creates distortion because you're forcing them to communicate.
Well, let's talk about how motion does that and how that works. Just by putting a couple players in motion, moving around across the formation, that also gives a message to the quarterback too, doesn't it?
Yeah. So this is actually a way that Andy Kotelnicki likes to kind of structure his offense. He ran a lot of stuff at Kansas where he would empty out the backfield, so send the running back on like an exit motion, and it creates an easy read for the quarterback. So you can, a run concept of your choosing up the middle with a swing screen to the running back, and if a linebacker or in some cases a safety runs with the backer, it immediately tells the quarterback he's running because they now have numbers in the box. So motion just it gives easy answers, and it's a way for the quarterback to kind of settle into the game and always stay right.
Typically, when I hear people talk about RPO, it puts a specific defender in conflict, that the quarterback is reading that one defender. It may be the defensive end or a safety or a linebacker. And post snap, you read, does he take the step forward? Does he take the step back? But it looked like with some of these concepts, it was even before the snap is even made, a player goes in motion, took a couple defenders with him, and all of a sudden you had numbers in the box. I have 5 or perhaps 6 blockers, and there's only 5 defenders in the box. So I'm actually making a decision as a quarterback before the ball is even snapped.
You're creating a very concrete black and white yes or no system. Does somebody run with our motion guy? If so, I'm going to keep the ball up the middle. If not, then we have an answer outside.
But I found it interesting. This is the first time I read with the idea of a specific route complements the RPO more than some others. And you talked about using a glance route. First of all, can you explain what a glance route is and why that's so much more effective in an RPO offense?
Yeah, I might be a little biased. This is definitely my favorite route in football, but I like to describe it as kind of like if a slant and a post had a baby, it would be a glance. Typically run at 5 steps. It's a lot of times measured by steps, but that usually comes out to like 8 to 10 yards. And I like it for a couple reasons. One, it times up really well with RPO. So if you think about like a hitch, for example, that receiver is going to be coming out of their break within 1.5, 2 seconds of the ball being snapped. So that gives the quarterback that much time to make a decision. It also gives whoever the conflict defender is that much time to kind of sit in the gray area, which then leads to misreads, that kind of stuff. The beauty of it with the glance is that it takes just long enough that the conflict defender has to declare themselves. So typically it's with a safety. So I think I highlighted this in the article. If a safety keys on the run, they're going to have to do it by the time that the glance route is being kind of broken to the post or to the slant. So it leaves a void. It just times up really well with the play overall.
And I'll tell you what, I love of reading information about football. Like you said, this is that long off season. So this is the time for Jim to learn things. And you used an expression called a flop read. Could you explain what that is for our listeners?
So most of the times when defenses, so when the RPO came out, 5-10 years ago now, defensive coordinators were scrambling, trying to figure out how we're going to defend this thing. And the way they defend everything is they try to find tendencies. So like you go to the University of Georgia, you go to Ohio State, And the defensive office, they're going to have binders full of their rivals and their tendencies. And something that people found with RPO is that whichever side that the quarterback turns his shoulders to, so whichever side that his chest is facing, that is the side in which that the route he's reading is on. So the flop read kind of counters that, because say the run is going to the right, so the quarterback turns his shoulders and they're now facing the right sideline, but he'll turn all the way and look back to usually the weak safety. And that it's a tendency breaker essentially, because now you're reading the safety opposite of where your shoulders are pointed. And defenses were essentially shifting the coverage to the side in which the quarterback was facing. So they were leaving huge voids kind of on the backside. So the flop read was a way to take advantage of that and keep defenses honest.
When we talk about RPO, there's also concepts that people confuse it with a zone read, where the options are the quarterback to hand it off to the running back or perhaps run himself. We've talked about that a lot on our show. And the issue has always been, well, Drew Aller would never keep the ball on that particular option. Now, in Andy Kotelnicki's offense, he has the quarterback keeping the ball. And is that going to be an issue now with Drew Aller as the quarterback?
I look back to I started following Andy Kotelnicki when he was at Buffalo. They had really explosive offense in the MAC there, and he had, I believe, Kyle Van Treese was his name, who similar. He wasn't quite as big as Drew Aller, but similar athletic capabilities. And he kind of just structured the offense to eliminate quarterback runs for the most part. I can assure you he's going to carry, Drew Aller carried the ball a fair amount this year, more than I thought he would. I don't think that number will go down at all. But I don't think we need to be scheming up, runs for Drew, and I don't think Andy does either. If I had to guess, it would be a lot more draw and like quarterback counter, things that are inside the tackles and don't really require him to capture the edge. But overall, I don't think that the true triple option stuff that he ran at Kansas will be implemented in Happy Valley, unless for whatever reason we get number 9 in the game somehow.
That kind of leads me to this question in the last minute or so we have left, Shane, is Mike Yursich was an RPO guy also, and a lot of people are. What makes Andy Kotelnicki's RPO different from everybody else's?
I think he presents them in a wide variety of ways. Yursich kind of had his 5 or 6 RPO concepts that he ran, and he really wouldn't vary too much from them. Kind of glance bubble, tight end in the flat, those kind of things. Kotelnicki keeps the reads the same, but he presents those plays in a wide variety of ways, and he does that like we talked about earlier, with shifts, motions, pre-snap movement, and unbalanced formations. That's another thing I highlighted in the article. Half the offense on one side of the ball, and really just doing unorthodox things that forces defenses to prepare for and communicate.